The Republican Party lost Rodney Davis to a primary challenge by a diehard Trumpster. It was a big loss, and one that I don't think the Republican Party understands even now, because he was doing a great job in Congress for 10 years. And as a moderate who is more than willing to work with the other side, is a voice of reason and actually getting things done. And I say that without ever having met Mr. Davis, because I was a fan of the work he was doing, and I'm happy to have him on the show. Good morning, Congressman.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
That's as flowery an introduction you'll ever get from me.
I was wondering, who wrote that? I haven't sounded that good in a very long time.
Well, I'm telling you right now, I do appreciate the work you did. I'm sorry about the ridiculous process where people can be primaried out of jobs, but that's why I constantly tell them, get off your ass and go vote in the primaries. It matters.
It certainly does. Look, the Democrats wanted to reduce the number of Republicans in Congress, and they don't care about taking out the most effective ones, and they were successful. So in the end, it's what happens in politics. I get it. I'm glad I'm onto a new juncture in my life, but I really enjoyed the time I was there.
Would you go back?
No. God, no, especially now.
Right. So let's talk about now. You saw what happened in the House the other day. You certainly know the players involved. What's your response to it?
I'm shell-shocked. I'm disappointed. I served with 4 speakers and never got a chance to serve with Kevin McCarthy as speaker, but 2 terms as our Republican leader. And let me tell you, anyone who says that he doesn't live up to what he commits and that he's not transparent clearly is just out-and-out lying. Kevin McCarthy did exactly what he said he was going to do, cut spending by $2 trillion, did what he could to make Democrats in a split government be able to be held accountable. Look, you've got Brandon Johnson going to the border. Finally, he and his liberal allies are waking up that we've had a crisis at our border that Kevin and us and Republicans have been screaming about for years.
So in having him moved out in what is clearly a stunt, and having the margin be 8 back in January when you saw the 15 rounds of voting for McCarthy to become speaker, and he had to give up this insane situation where one member could push a vote and have a vote to remove, and it's ultimately decided by 8. Congress can't sustain with that rule. It just can't.
No, I wanted to get rid of that rule when it was used against John Boehner by a sociopathic narcissist named Mark Meadows back when we were freshmen. So these are the types of issues that are seem internal but can be used by flamethrowers like Matt Gaetz to really boost his own profile. And really, that's what it's all about. It's personal between Matt and Kevin, and what Matt is doing is getting the attention that he craves, and I don't know how he's going to give up that attention, which means I just don't see this speaker's race and the Republicans coming to an agreement on who should lead the House. I don't think it ends quickly, to be honest with you.
Congressman, you used that same word narcissist to describe Matt Gaetz yesterday on NPR, and truly it just seems as an attempt by Gaetz to kind of create chaos at this point. And that's, I think you would probably agree that's definitely not what the Congress or the country needs at this point.
You're absolutely right. It isn't. That's not the way I govern. Look, I know Matt. I helped Matt get on the Armed Services Committee when he got there. He wasn't the same Matt Gaetz when he arrived that he is today. And he is somebody that clearly wants to go down in the history books to be known as the person who first took out a sitting speaker with a motion to vacate. He doesn't care about governing. He cares about chaos, and he cares about blowing the place up, which means this could go on for a while. I think you've seen some interviews. You may have seen some interviews today of people who voted to eject Kevin. They're not committing to even Jim Jordan being conservative enough. That just tells me this is going to be something for the long haul rather than the short term.
Well, part of the problem is the public doesn't have time to properly understand the issues because the soap opera gets covered ad nauseum when if it were possible to do this, and I understand we all are in business, but you're not getting it here, to just talk about what matters to people, it's a much bigger deal. I mean, you mentioned Jim Jordan. He has made it clear he would like to be considered for Speaker. Here's Jordan on Ukraine.
At some point, we're going to have to deal with this appropriation process in the right way. And we're going to try to do that in the next, what are we down to, 41 days. The most pressing issue on Americans' mind is not Ukraine. It is the border situation, and it is crime on the streets. And everybody knows that.
And while Jordan is not wrong about what people are most concerned about, you also have to govern and represent them, because Ukraine is an incredible threat to America at large. So how do you balance it?
Well, you're going to be forced to balance it in divided government. And I think what a big problem in the polarized environment that we all live in right now when it comes to governing is that expectations on both ends of that polar spectrum are set so high, and you can barely achieve those expectations in perfection when you control all of government,
right?
Let alone having split government. And that's where you're going to start to see the speaker candidates. You're going to be able to determine, if you watch closely, who's making promises they can keep or who's talking platitudes that will be taken as promises that they will never be able to keep. And that's one thing about Kevin McCarthy. He never made those promises he couldn't keep. It was alleged he made those by people who were not telling the truth, but he never did that. So watch very carefully in the speaker's race who can overpromise and underdeliver, or who's actually going to underpromise and overdeliver.
Yeah, and the other piece of this is it really is high school. And when the cliques start to separate and you're not part of the clique, you're probably not going to get elected. And just as personal and bitter and tiny as these fights seem to be, when they add up to who is in control of the agenda in the House, all of government stops.
It is. Government is stopped right now. Nothing's going to move in the House. And the sad part is, as Republicans, we have the innate ability to screw up a news cycle that's bad for Democrats. We did it back in 2013 with the famous Ted Cruz shutdown, because, we were going to get Barack Obama to stop implementing his signature health care legislation. So we didn't get a chance to remind the world that the rollout of that Obamacare plan was a disaster. Why? Because we were in a 17-day shutdown. Right. These are the types of decisions Republicans make that just stop us from being able to convince the American people that what Democrats and President Biden are doing is nothing to address the major problems they care about.
Well, I think a lot of people are wondering, we'll let you go on this, Congressman. I hope you'll come back and talk some more, but what's a nice guy from Southern Illinois doing at Harvard?
I don't know why they called and asked me to come out here. I feel like I'm kind of in a time warp. A small town kid from Taylorville that graduated from the Harvard of the Midwest, Millikan University in Decatur. Now out here in Cambridge, teaching on campus. Sometimes I feel like a circus animal out here as a Republican. But you know what I found? Harvard is actually a place where the students want to learn about other viewpoints. I was somewhat surprised by that.
That's great. Mm-hmm. No, that's absolutely great. Well, keep up the good work. We'll have you back when you're ready and when we need you, and I think that's probably going to be soon. So thank you, sir.
Call anytime. Thanks.
There you go. Rodney Davis, former congressman.